Okay, a lot of the things that we've covered are dealing with some very basic ideas of how a ski works. Another thing we've talked about is how the body works, the biomechanics of the body. And we've even talked about ski technique and how it's evolved over the years based on the changes in equipment, both the skis becoming more modern into what we're dealing with today, as well as the boots going from the leather up into plastic and some of the things that have changed because of that. We've mentioned the fact that a lot of ideas or concepts of skiing are based on outdated ideas and ski techniques, some of which became a style. And skiing, the one that we referred to was the idea of feet together with the low leather boot was a functional style of skiing, that became such a distinct style that was the measuring stick by how we decided whether someone was a good skier, was if they could keep their feet together and do what was called a vadel. And even after the ski boots turned into the plastic and you didn't need the function of legs together, people still judged that as how they wanted to ski, even though it was no longer needed, or you might say functional. The other change, so the biggest changes I would say in skis, metal edges, as we talked about this ski, holding the heel down. This is one of the first bindings that actually began to hold the heel down and has moved us from Telmark into the Christie phase. Safety bindings and different materials. This having some metal in it, how to put metal into a ski to change its characteristics. Fiberglass, wet wrap fiberglass wood core skis. So these are some changes in materials that have changed. We talked about ski technique. With this type of a ski, we needed to keep pressure out on the tip, pressure the forebody, and allow the ski to slide around into position. So that dictated a boot that transferred pressure forward on the ski. And that now that we don't need to do that, as we referred to the new modern ski with the shape that when we tipped it on its edge, it bit in the tip and the tail. And we all needed now is to press into this turning balance point of the ski to get it to bend into that arc. And really allows us now, if we so choose, to actually what we refer to as pure carved turns. Tip, middle, and tail all passing through the same place in the snow. We've talked about the idea of squeezing grapes, of pressing into the front of the boot, that idea came from distributing pressure out into the forebody, that it's no longer needed because the ski now bites just from being edged. Some of the ideas of how the foot functions, of getting pressure to the ball of the foot, and everybody pretty much agrees that we need to keep pressure, and this is my right ski, over the inside edge to get the ski to hold. And a lot of people have, and I did for quite a while as well, the misconception that to get pressure to the inside, I needed to roll to get pressure to line up. What I since learned was that the body, the way it works, and we talked about the biomechanics of gait and walking, that we can maintain pressure on the ball of the foot by resupinating the foot and allowing the pressure to stay there as in a lever that we would use in gait. And that the heel off position, the position of the foot just at heel off, is probably the strongest position that we can get the foot into inside the ski boot and maintain that pressure on the inside edge without the need to misalign or pronate, unlocking the bones of the foot. With all that being understood, why is it that people still have technical ideas or show us things in their skiing that don't fit in with that model that we've been talking about? And the biggest problem, the biggest thing, besides the misunderstanding of biomechanics and technique, the ideas that have hung on too long, is what the boot allows us to do, or the positions that the boot actually puts us in. So when we buy a boot, pretty much it dictates, as it is, if I stand the boot on the floor, it points someplace. So when a boot points, it's a wonderful thing if it just by its nature happens to point to your center of mass, because then skiing just becomes moving and the ski comes on edge at the right time. Problem is, if it happens to point someplace else, is before I can get it to do what I want, I have to go chase it, and I move actually in the wrong position trying to do that. Now, obviously, people wouldn't choose to move into the wrong position. So we need to understand really why the boot causes some of these problems when we work with people. So what kind of technical flaws, let's say, happen when boots are misaligned, or what is it that we actually mean by alignment? And when we talk about alignment, we really start, again, skiing, we deal with starting from the ground, from the snow up, and balancing on the ski in the snow. When we talk about alignment, we need to talk about a solid base, which would be the ski, the binding, and the bottom bottom part of the boot. To allow us to deal with the pressure there, what we need to do first is deal with the footbed, because we've talked about this idea of rotation and pronation. And the purpose of a footbed, I guess if you put it really, really simply, is to maintain the foot in a position that's basically what would be called neutral, which would allow the foot to move into pronation to unlock the bones, or move into supination to engage the bones into a lever. So the purpose of the footbed is basically to put the foot into a position where we can access the different movements that engage or disengage the bones of the foot. We talked about what parts of the turn we want to engage the bones, what part of the turn we want to disengage the bones, and we've referred a little bit to that as well. So when we start to talk about alignment in a boot, first thing is getting the bones of the foot supported in a way that they have access to both pronation and supination, or to be able to resupinate the foot to create that lever arm and stay aligned. So when we're dealing with that, first thing is footbed. And a lot of times what we see, if someone is a pronator, and many people, you would say overpronate, that means that their natural foot position is already collapsed to the inside with the bones unlocked. What that means then is that their foot is a loose bag of bones inside the boot. Without proper support, when the foot feels loose like that, what the tendency to do, I guess I should keep this, the tendency to do with a loose bag of bones is to buckle down on top of the foot to get the foot to find the support from underneath. And you can realize that as I do that, as I collapse the foot, I'm actually rotating the leg out of position of what we referred to before. The better solution is to support the foot in a position where the space, instead of being pushed down into, is actually held from underneath. That allows us to just snug the boot on top of the foot, much more comfortable position, and it allows the foot to stay in a position where it can resupinate and engage and lock into a position to help us maintain pressure on the ball of the foot without that misalignment. So really I think of the footbed as a rotary problem, and it's solved with a correct footbed to keep the bones of the foot ready to do the movement patterns that we would like to see them do in skiing.